Hello and welcome back to the Championship Lowdown. I am once again joined with Ollie. Welcome back, Ollie.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
And we are back for a little bit of a different episode. So obviously, normally on Thursdays we just do a preview, but as there were some games, obviously this midweek, we've got a few games to review from the midweek fixtures, and then we'll move into a couple of the games looking forward to this weekend. So I think we'll get straight into it, and we'll start with the first game of the week, which we're going to talk about from the midweek games. Ipswich versus Charlton. Probably the big surprise of this week. Ipswich losing 3-0 at Portman Road to Charlton. I believe it was Kerry, Gillespie and Leeburn who got the goals for Charlton to seal a huge away win at Portman Road, which I believe puts them now into 5th in the Championship, whereas Ipswich sitting all the way down in 14th after 10 games played. Safe to say, I think if we said that at the start of the season, you say, are you sure you haven't got them the other way round?
We would have been laughed out the park predicting this one. I think if anybody had seen a 3-0 Charlton prediction, they'd have been telling us to go find something else to do. Shocking result, really, all the way around. It's Charlton going to Portman Road, and let's be honest, it's a statement win. This Charlton have impressed me. I said at the start of the season that I thought they might have come up a season too early. I couldn't have been more wrong. And fair play to Charlton. They're doing wonderful things in the Championship. They're not out of place in that current. I think the 5th. Did you say? It's like that's an incredible start to the season for Charlton. Who would have thought that? Certainly not me. I mean, looking at the stats of that game. Obviously, Ipswich has dominated possession. They've probably had a little bit more chances, but it's fair play for Charlton. I mean, they do it all season. They make themselves hard to beat. They're hard to break down. And they've just taken their chances this weekend. And let's be honest, they've come away with that 3-0 result, and that's not a fluke, is it?
No. My big thing with Ipswich is you have 31 shots on goal and you don't score a goal. I mean, exactly. Insanity. 5 shots on target out of 31 shots as well. I mean, that is poor. But Charlton, as you said, as I said at the start of the season, I thought they would be struggling. I didn't think they'd go down. But I didn't think they'd be a hard team to beat, as they proved last season in the Championship. And they're proving it again. But a 3-0 win against Ipswich is just absurd, really. You don't see stuff like that happen very often, not with how good teams like Ipswich can be at times. Obviously, not really shown it this season, but they have in certain games. But not this one. I mean, I just don't know how much you could say about this from Ipswich perspective. You'd be fuming at home against a team who people predict to struggle, and you come out 3-0 loss to a team that now sits 5th in the. I mean, I said it in our group chat the other day. I think it's one of the worst top 6 I've seen in a long time as far as what we expected, because there's not a parachute payment in sight.
That's it. Which is credit to the league, and we've said it all along how competitive this division is, and for it to start, what we're 11 games in now, and for the top 6 to be looking the way it is looking is testament to the entire group of teams in the Championship. I just think it's so competitive, and this season's just compounded that. I mean, I know Ipswich have obviously they struggled losing the goalkeeper early on in that game, so that might have played a part, sort of, psychologically, and then sort of having to reshuffle around that sort of setback. But like you say, the amount of chances they've created to come away with not only 3-0 loss at home, but to have not even scored a goal is massive testament to Charlton. And I don't think we can just need to sit here and criticise Ipswich. We've got to give Charlton the credit here, and they've deserved that. And the real worry from my perspective is we play them next, so we'll see how that confidence. We'll see how that confidence sort of goes, really, because it's going to be a really interesting game at the weekend, that one.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, as you said, very well deserved win for Charlton, and safe to say, warning signs are ringing at Ipswich with the current way that they're sat in the table.
Is McKenna under pressure? Is he under pressure?
Oh, is he under pressure?
Question.
I don't know. I think he has to be with the expectations placed upon Ipswich at the start of the season. I think I had them steamrolling this division under 14th.
I'd agree with it. I think they need to turn it around pretty quickly and start showing them sort of top 2, top 3 credentials. Otherwise, they might be looking at making a change. I can't see it just yet, but I do think there's a bit of pressure building on McKenna.
It's definitely not safe as definitely not as safe as everyone thought it would be.
That's it.
Next up, we'll move on to your Hull City. but a game against Leicester City, and fair play to Hull, they've continued their very recent or sort of random run of form out of nowhere to come out with another win, a 2-1 win this time at home. I believe it was Miller and Gelhardt who get the goals for you, and a very good Ramsey goal later on in the game. Wasn't enough to get them a result here, and they come away with another loss for Leicester, albeit they start at 8th in the table. But Hull, up to 7th in the league. I believe you were sat 4th at one point during this midweek sort of spell of games going on. So you must be pretty happy with how you've been in the last couple of weeks.
I've said previously, I'm happy the way we've played in spells in games. We've shown real potential in games going forward. We just seem to lack a little bit defensively. And fair play, I mean, don't get me wrong. There've been chances created, and we've had a bit of luck in those games. I'll go back to the Birmingham game last weekend. Birmingham should have had a penalty, but then later on, when they did get a penalty, it probably wasn't one. So it's one of those where they kind of iron themselves out. Birmingham had chances, obviously, to win that game, but we took our chances and kept them out. So the games are there to be won. And I thought our 2 goals against Leicester in midweek were absolutely brilliant. Such well-worked goals, especially the second one. Liam Miller, coming back from that massive injury he had. He's been out for a year. It's his first start literally in 360 days at the MKM Stadium. And he was absolutely outstanding. And he created the goal for Gelhardt. Obviously, Giles put the ball across for him, but Gelhardt getting on the end of that, really, really swift, slick movement. And like I said, the thing for us, it's not getting forward and scoring and creating chances is the problem. It's the fact that we've scored 19, but we've also conceded 19. We're very entertaining side to watch. It's to say that we're 7th in the league with a 0 goal difference is quite incredible. But Leicester created chances. They had a lot of possession. Should they have got another goal? Maybe. I don't know, but I do think ultimately we deserve the win here. And to go back to back now, which is wins against Sheffield United, Birmingham and Leicester, going into another home game against another form side in Charlton, as I've already alluded to. It's going to be a tough game this weekend, but Charlton are going to need to be on their guard, and they're going to need to make themselves kind of, firm like they do for us to keep us out, really, because we are attacking well.
I mean, yeah, you've pretty much summed it up perfectly there. I can't add too much to it. I will say as well, you come off a game where you've ended Birmingham's 2-year unbeaten streak at home, and then you come in and follow it up with a win against the Leicester side, which again everyone had to do very well this season. And then Sheffield United looks better and better as the weeks goes on, with their form finally picking up. So, I mean, our result against you with that 2-2 draw, we should have won the game, looks even better with the way you've been playing at the minute. But you've now beat Southampton, Birmingham, and Leicester this season, and drew against Coventry. So, it's impressive. I have to say, I really didn't expect it from this whole side at all. I think I said at the start of the season with your manager, I was like, there's potential. You can see on the underlying stats that he has a good record from where he's come from. So that's why I didn't write him off. It's just a massive unknown. I think that's why he ranked pretty low in our manager's video, because we just didn't know what we were getting. And fair play, you're getting a very exciting team to watch. As you said, you haven't really had a boring game so far this season, bar the 0-0 with Coventry.
Coventry, I was going to say, which is so weird, isn't it? Given the amount of goals we've scored between us. 50 goals between us, Coventry and Hull City, and 0 in our game.
Mental, but pretty much, just very impressed. And as far as Leicester goes, they're such a weird team. Every time I find a thing, they're clicking. They don't. I mean, it really does annoy me as a Swansea fan to see their record. I think in their last 8 games, they've won 1, and it was against us. So they have drawn like 6 of them as well, in all fairness. But yeah, they've won 1, and it was against us. So that's just typical. But just not quite at the level you'd expect the Leicester side to be in the Championship, especially considering the last time they were in this division, they absolutely walked it. So interesting, but Hull very, very impressive.
It is. I mean, I was a little bit disappointed with Fatawu for Leicester, because he was up against Ryan Giles, and I've mentioned recently that I'm a little bit concerned about Giles defensively. Nothing wrong with him going forward. His assists speak for themselves. But defensively, he's often out of position. But to be fair, I can't remember a time where Fatawu beat him, really. He got a little bit tired towards the end, and he picked up a knock and got substituted, because we had to bring Famewa on. And fair play to him. We handled that pressure pretty well. I thought Semi Ajayi was fantastic. Charlie Hughes again, fantastic. Like I said, our standout for me was Liam Miller. and massive plaudits to that kid, because what a big injury he's had to come back to. And he's not had a bad performance since coming back. What I will say as well is we're waiting to that Leicester game without an Ollie McBurney, which was really concerning for me at the start of the game. So I was thinking, where's our outlook going to be? But fair play, Miller stepped up and created and scored. So
yeah, I mean, fair play. I said you pretty much said that perfectly, as I would expect from you watching the whole game and knowing basically everything about it. So I'm not surprised. But yeah, brilliant from Hull. I said big result. I said even without McBurney, it didn't seem to be an issue against a very, very good Leicester side. So very encouraging signs at the MKM in the last couple of weeks. Next up, we have got Bristol City versus Southampton. And I believe, Ollie, in our Championship Lowdown predictions, we were the only ones to predict that Bristol City would win this game. And we were both right. They come up with a 3-1 home win, thanks to an Anis Messi goal and a Scott Twine brace, overruling an Adam Armstrong goal. And I think, as much as we could talk about Scott Twine being brilliant and Bristol City being impressive, the focal point for me is that awful goal Southampton conceded defensively. I mean, every time I watch the replay, I don't know about you, it's just confusing me more and more by the second.
It's comedy genius. I mean, what is McCarthy doing? It's like it's as if the ball's a bomb and he's trying to get away from it. And it's like, what are you trying to do? I couldn't get my head around it. And it does get more and more funny every time you watch it. It's an absolute laughable moment. Have you ever seen that YouTube channel, Shit Nantes Football? That's what it reminds me of. It's called Shit Nantes Football. You have to look out for it, right? But that's what this goal looks like. It looks like it belongs in the Nantes for some really, really terrible lower league sides. But McCarthy, mate, what are you doing? Jump on the ball. You're a goalkeeper. Jump on the ball and kill the move. Keeps you at 1-1, and you might even go on to win the game. But fair play to Twine. You know, he's in the right place at the right time. He's had a great start to the season, as have Bristol City. Their league position speaks for itself. They've had some big results this season, and they're continuing to do so. Southampton are disappointing. I don't think there's any other words for it. I think Will Still's got a big job on his hands to turn this around here. They've got a side there, mate, where there's lots and lots and lots of quality in there, and he's just not getting them playing. I don't know whether it's the systems that he's using. I don't know whether it's something to do with the coaching or whether he's losing the dressing room already. I don't know, but it's seemingly that lack of confidence from last season in the Premier League has just followed them down into the Championship.
Well, what I will say, right, and as someone who I was at St Mary's on Saturday for when we drew 0-0 to Southampton, and I can't really place the blame upon Will Still because they created more than enough chances in that game against us to win comfortably, and the strikers were missing sitters. I mean, I think they had 3.2 expected goals in a 0-0 draw. Armstrong missed an open goal. I believe Archer missed an open goal.
Swung for it with his right leg, and he should have just poked it in with his left. It'd have been a goal.
Yeah, he hit the post from basically an open goal. Yeah. Archer had arguably his bad one where he missed with like a 0.89 expected goal chance, and he missed. Honestly, I can't. Again, I watched a bit of this game last night. I still don't know if it's Will Still. I just don't think the players are as good as everyone thinks they are. It's another game where they've had chances and they haven't taken them. And not as much as Swansea by any stretch of the imagination, but they still had more superior expected goals, superior shots on target, and they've not won the game. I really don't know how much blame you can put upon Will Still when this team isn't producing. I think they're playing football, winning football, but the players aren't clinical enough to execute it. And I really, that is my opinion, watching the full 90 on Saturday and now watching this. I just don't, again, there's obviously blame because when you're losing games, the manager's always going to get the target. But I really don't think another manager does much for this team with how bad, especially in the attacking areas, how bad they've been in the last couple of games.
Is it a confidence thing? Is it something similar to what Sheffield United were going through? You know, it just because they're not scoring goals, they are creating chances, but it's just not going in for them. Like you say, I mean, that chance that Armstrong had with his another laughable moment, really. But you just sort of saying to yourself, just hit it with your left foot. It's natural, just hit it with your left foot, and then to follow up, let's just hit it with your left foot, put it in. But he goes for both with his right, and you're like, maybe you're right. Maybe it's just a confidence thing. Maybe it's one of them things where the chances are coming, and for one reason or another, whether it's still, I don't know. Yeah, we don't know, do you? Like you said, they're creating the chances. They've got the XG. They're just not putting it away. It must be a confidence thing. It's got to be.
Yeah, I just can't. I mean, defensively they're a shambles, but I think that's where you blame still a bit more. But again, they were good against us. I'm not saying it's difficult to be good against us defensively at the minute, but they kept us out completely in that game. This game was the complete opposite. They were an absolute disaster and gave up 3 goals, which, I mean, yeah, just as we said, as we just touched on that one, in hilariously bad fashion. But I just don't know if it's all Will Still's fault, because like I said, the manager always gets the blame when a team does badly, especially a team that should be competing to get promoted is sat wherever they are in the league. I believe I want to say 18th in the league.
The 18th now. Wow.
18th. They've fallen below Portsmouth now in 18th. 12 points, just 4 above the relegation zone after 11 games.
Bristol City they only as well, will they?
Bristol City up to 4th with that win. So yeah, they're in that weird sort of playoff concoction at the minute.
That's it. I mean, Millwall, 4th going into a game against Birmingham. So
yeah, I mean the playoff teams being Millwall, Bristol City, Charlton, and Stoke is certainly something.
It says a lot for physicality, doesn't it?
Yeah, with Hull and QPR in the chase in 7th and 8th. But yeah, I just don't blame Will Still as much as other people do. I think this team has to score these chances because they're creating them. They really are, and they're just not finished. Especially against us, it was diabolical. They didn't win that game. I've now come away from the draw thinking, how on earth did we draw that game more than I did then? And this week, it looks like you probably think we probably shouldn't have lost this game either.
Yeah.
Next up, and unfortunately, as much as I objected to this pre-recording, as I didn't want to speak about Swansea, I've been told I have no choice and I have to do it, apparently. Swansea vs QPR, a 1-0 win for QPR, thanks to, I believe, was it Barella who got the goal for QPR? I mean, I'll sort of go first with a bit of detail on this one. It's horrendous, the state we're in at the minute. I mean, it's absolutely tragic. That's 2 games in a row where we've not registered a shot on target before the 89th minute, and that's not acceptable at any level. You can't be that bad in front of goal for 90 minutes 2 weeks in a row. Doesn't help Yalkoué getting the sending off for a headbutt, and I will use that term very lightly, on Steve Cook. Which
you're giving the referee a decision to make, though.
It's stupid. You're absolutely right. He doesn't need to do it. It's silly, and again, it's the experience of Steve Cook getting to the naivety of Malik Yalkoué, and he reacts, and it's a red card, whatever. But even then, we still dominated a lot of the parts of the game. We just don't create any chances. And Alan Sheehan had the goal to say that he's an attacking-minded manager, and I cannot believe you have the audacity to say that with how bad we are in attacking areas. I mean, it's tragic.
This is the game where you lined up with 3 defensive midfielders.
Correct, yeah. We lined up with Franco, Yalkoué and Stan Minich after saying we need a creative spark last week after basically creating nothing in 90 minutes Southampton to then create nothing in 90 minutes against QPR either. So it's absolutely baffling, and I think personally I would sack him now. I'm past the point of being able to accept the performance levels. With how open the Championship is, this is a season where anyone can go up. And our team is good enough to be in them conversations, in my opinion, on paper. I think it's good enough to be in them sort of conversations, especially with the teams that are in the playoffs. And we're just not performing at all. It's just tragic. We can't score for the life of us at the minute. We're making teams look so much better than they are. For me, I would sack him. And I think if we lost on Saturday, which I'm not saying I would accept, but I wouldn't be angry if we lost that game if it meant that he was gone, because I can't watch this anymore. It's really, really painful.
Yeah, that's a big shout, that, mate. It's to even consider losing a game in general, but to if it does sort of compound your manager's your sacking at the weekend, then like you mentioned previously about bringing Danny Rowling to replace him, but obviously he's gone to Rangers now. Who would be out there now, in your opinion, then to come in and to change round the Swansea sort of ship? Who can steer them in the right direction?
It's been a question from a lot of us because we all want Sheehan gone, but it's like, no, okay, so he is gone. Who'd you go get? I think Brendan Rodgers might be a serious option to bring him back, because I think Celtic are going to lose patience with how poor they've been in the league this season. Wouldn't mind it. I think there's plenty. I wouldn't mind Michael Carrick, really, in all honesty. I think he'd fit our sort of style philosophy quite well. I think you could even look to big names, to try and do what Coventry did with Lampard and try and get someone like Steven Gerrard. Not saying I'd be over the moon, but again, there's potential there for that to work. I think there's plenty of options. I just think there's so many more exciting managers to get, and I think we fall into the trap that our neighbours down the road fell into last year of going with the assistant who had an all right run of form at some point, giving him the full-time job because he looked so good in the all right period, and then it's come back to bite you. Luckily for us, we have the time to make the decision now and turn our season around, whereas they didn't. But I just think there's so many more exciting options out there.
Yeah, obviously going into that Swan game at the weekend, it's a battle of the next manager to be sacked games, isn't it? there's not really much more I can say, mate. Obviously, you're the Swansea fan. You're the one who was following him around all the place. So I'm not really got much more to add on that, other than obviously QPR. I continue to say that 7-1 did him the world of good, and what a turnaround that they've actually faced. Incredible, really. To be looking down a 7-1 barrel, and then all of a sudden find yourself just outside the playoff places after a run of games where you've been absolutely incredible, losing just to Millwall, I believe, which is it's not such a bad thing losing to Millwall. It's just it's a tough place to go. They've been away to Bristol City and got wins. They beat Stoke, who were having a good season. They've been to Wrexham and won well. And fair play to QPR. They've turned it around, and they've turned it around well, and they're sat in a decent position now. And they could really build on that. 18 points, 8th in the league, going into a game against Derby at the weekend, who don't score many goals. These QPR will go there, they'll fancy their chances, and who's to say that they won't come away with another win at the weekend?
Yeah, I will say I wasn't too impressed in the second half of QPR. I think, for a team who had a man advantage, they didn't play like it. We had a lot of the ball, and we weren't creating chances because we don't do that anymore. But a competent side would have created a lot of chances in that second half. I think they struggled, but they got the win, which is all that matters at the end of the day. But I think there's definitely room for improvement in that QPR squad, which is scary to say when they're already in 8th, they could get a lot better than what they are already. So be interesting to see if they can kick on now in the next couple of weeks. So we'll move into the preview section of this video now, and we will kick it off with Ipswich again. You might see a pattern here with teams being repeated from our reviews, because that's, again, another week, which we seem to say every week, but there's not many interesting games really this weekend. So we've gone with the 4, which we think are the best. And that first one is Ipswich versus West Brom. So we just spoke about Ipswich coming off a huge loss against Charlton. And West Brom, a team that continues to be inconsistent. I think they're consistently inconsistent, I think is the best way you can put it with West Brom. They're just not quite at the levels of loss to Watford, obviously. Wednesday night this time recording, it's Thursday, so on the last slate of the week games. But where do you see this one going, Ollie? Because obviously this is an Ipswich side which needs a win really badly, but then a West Brom side that needs a bit of consistency as well.
I was listening to an interview with Ryan Mason. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, and he was saying about they're suffering a little bit mentally in games. They can't seem to get their heads around sort of how the games are going, and that's obviously playing a big part for them. You're right in what you say with the consistently inconsistent. Earlier on in the season, I thought they were playing some really good sort of exciting football, and I thought Mason had them sort of ticking over quite nicely, starting to develop those systems going forward, and they looked like they were setting themselves in good stead. But then they've just hit a spell where they can't seem to keep that together for 90 minutes of a game. And like you say, that loss against Watford at the weekend, it's not sort of result you're wanting as a West Brom fan. You expect to go to a place like Watford with a team that West Brom have gotten to come away with a win, or at least a draw. You don't want to be losing that game, especially given how sort of consistently inconsistent Watford are as well. I mean, they did sack the manager again, like they often do, when they were sat in 9th in the league, which is crazy. But that's Watford for you, and that's their ownership model, unfortunately. But that's the way it is. And yeah, I just think Mason, they've got to stick with Mason for me. I like him, and I do think he'll get him clicking because we've got a good side there. But they both need a reaction this week, and I think coming up against each other is a really, really tough game for both sides. I think they're both, like I said, they're both going to want a reaction. How do they line up in this game, both teams? Do they go and attack? Do they go and try and play their natural games? Because it could be a wide open game if that's the case, but I just got a feeling that they might just cancel each other out, these two.
Yeah, I just like West Brom. Every time we think they're going to come back and hit a bit of form, they lose again. They get the 1-0 win against Norwich a couple of weeks ago, and you think, okay, that's a good away win. You build on that, and then they come out and lose 3-0 at the Den. They then come back, beat a very good Preston side at home. You think, okay, now they're going to kick on, and then they come and lose to Watford. Because every time you think they're finally going to kick on, they don't, and they just end up losing another game. There's the same thing with Ipswich. Like, that's two horrendous. A big loss to Middlesbrough, which, as I said, I think I said it a few times in this podcast, when you give teams a lead in the table, you can't help but extend it, because teams like Ipswich as well, their promotion hopes, are probably lessening by the day. And when you lose to the teams who are taking your spots, they're certainly going down and down and down. And then Charlton, again, technically, a team that's in the playoff spots as well, who are now gaining a bigger advantage on you again. So, Ipswich now, I believe, so Coventry sat on 25 points, Ipswich sat on 13. They're 12 points off top of the table, with only one game in hand to make it 9.
It's a big jump, and it's a lot of ground to make up. But we know the Championship. We've already said, look at the top 6 already, and we're only 11 games in, to be fair. So there's still plenty of time to go. And Ipswich should start showing the credentials at some point, like we've already discussed it, haven't we? The team is riddled with quality, absolutely riddled with quality. We'll talk about Philogene, mate. Honestly, what a talent he is, but he needs everybody else in that team to start playing along with him. They've looked pretty poor defensively from time to time, and a couple of the goals are conceded against Charlton. They might have done a little bit better defensively, and you're just thinking, when does it start to click for Ipswich, and when do they start putting them runner games together? Because, like you said, they went on a spell where they won one, drew one, and you kind of thinking, right, this is where Ipswich start moving and start motoring. But then to lose 2 games back to back and find themselves slap bang in the middle of the league again, it's a real tough time for McKenna, and it's a real interesting one how he sort of faces it. Because I don't know how I'd line up against this West Brom side. Like I say, both going in there trying to get a reaction, and West Brom are dangerous. Like they've got a loss at the weekend, so they're due a win, aren't they?
Yeah, if you go for their form, it's this win loss. So if you go for anything, it's a win this week. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a weird game with 2 teams. As we said with Southampton and Ipswich, when does it click? What if it doesn't? At this point, you have to think maybe it won't. But as you said, it's the Championship. We've seen plenty of times. I remember one season, I think came up on the timeline on my Twitter the other day, as like Reading after 8 games at top of the league and ended up going down the same season. So it's certainly not anything to be like they're 100% dead in the water. But a 12-point gap to the league leaders, that's a big gap to overcome, especially with how good Coventry are. For me, I'd be surprised, but we'll soon find out after this weekend's game to see which team's going to end up hopefully building on a bit of form. Next up, and again, much to my disagreement, as I don't want to talk about this football club, I'll do it again. Swansea versus Norwich, as you labelled it, the potential battle of managers next in line to be sacked. Alan Sheehan under pressure at Swansea, and Liam Manning under big pressure at Norwich as well. I don't see a world where we win this game, and I think we're going to keep Liam Manning in a job here this weekend. But I don't even know if it'll be the end of Alan Sheehan. It really just depends on how serious our owners are and wanting to compete this year. Because to me, spending that sort of money and bringing in players like Cameron Burgess, for example, it's a win now signing. That isn't a long-term outlook signing. That is you want to win games and you want to win them now. Bringing in a 29, 28-year-old centre-back for his Premier League experience, with a big wage. That's not a signing that you build on in 3 years' time. He'll be gone. So we're sat 16th in the table. Norwich obviously 22nd. So if you look at it on that perspective, we probably are the favourites going into this weekend at home as well. But we were heavy favourites against QPR on Wednesday night as well, and that ended up going the way I expected it to. I just can't back us to win a game when we can barely muster a shot on target at the minute. I think this has to be the nail in the coffin for Sheehan if we lose this game. I don't think it will be, but it should be, because, as I said, this team can compete. It really can. There's so much potential. I think if you look at every area in the pitch, maybe right back's our only weakness. Apart from that, I don't really see a very big weakness in this team. Maybe that's why in the attacking departments, but I think that's just the manager holding them back personally. But as I said, if we were to lose this game and it was to be the nail in the coffin for Sheehan, I really wouldn't be angry at taking a loss at Norwich, to be honest.
It's a real interesting game for me this weekend, Swansea against Norwich, because it's like it feels to me like a bit of a pressure cooker situation. It's one of those where if you draw this game, there's potential for both managers to lose a job here, which is bonkers considering. Norwich they've got 8 points from 11 games. They're currently sat in the bottom 3. They haven't won a game in 7 or 8 games, which for a team that with the quality that they've got in that team, they're in a false position. But Sheffield United have put a couple of wins back together. You can pull yourself away from that. I know they've got Kvistgaard might be back this weekend. I was reading earlier on today, so that could be a big boost for them. But Cranach out for the season now, isn't he? He's done his ACL, so that's a loss, a massive loss for him. Going into that game this weekend, it could be any result. They're both going to be cagey. They're both going to be scared to break each other down. They don't want to pile forward too much to give the opposing side a chance to basically get a lead to sit on. And what I've seen of Swansea so far this season is when they do that, they tend to try and sit on a lead. Generally, not to too much success, but it's a real tough game, this one for me, and it wouldn't surprise me if after this game one of them is sacked. For what it's worth, I just don't see Norwich have got anywhere near as much anywhere near the confidence required to go to Swansea and get a win. I appreciate the pressure's off a little bit more when they go away from home because they've not won a home game all season, losing 6, which is madness. So to go away might relieve the pressure a little bit on them for a performance, but I can see Swansea getting a result here and Liam Manning seeing the door. Much to your dismay.
I'd love to have that kind of optimism with my team, unfortunately, but I've watched us too many times to have that kind of optimism. This is a Norwich team I predicted to be in the playoffs pre-season. There's so much talent in that team, and I was like, I really wouldn't have been surprised. And lo and behold, they're 22nd. But then again, all of our predictions are all out of whack at the minute. So, listen, I think if anyone predicted anything this season, if anyone predicted this after 10 games of fair play, you should be.
I think Elliot predicted Charlton to be quite high up, so fair play to that one.
You should be getting lottery numbers if you predicted half of these teams to be where they are after 11 games. I just can't see it with Swans personally. I really do think it won't be the end of Sheehan, even though it should be. It has to be, in my opinion, if you want to save this again. Because in reaction, if you want to save this season, we're only 5 points outside the playoffs. But at the same time, what's the point of persisting if it's bad? Just get rid and get someone else in, because I just don't see why you have to have so much patience with people where, as many people have said watching us, what are you trying to do? And I still don't understand what we're trying to do. There's no real system. It's not really hoof ball to an extent because we keep the ball. We're like 5th in the league for possession. And again, it screams back to a time with like Russell Martin when we kept the ball and didn't do anything with it. But even then we were more creative than this. That was extreme possession. This is a bit less, but at the same time, it's sort of just aimless balls forward now to no one. And then, or just really just struggling to get out of our own half or just keeping the ball around the halfway line, not really moving forward at all. No progression, nothing. With so much talent in this team, it's just a waste, in my opinion, to keep hold of a manager like Sheehan. But as you said, maybe there'll be another manager gone, depending on what happens with this.
Could you see a world that Swansea win this game and still sack Sheehan?
No.
No,
I don't know if it will sack him even if we lose, which is mental.
Oh, really?
I don't think we will. I just think they're going to try and give him a bit of time, which is unfortunate because I don't think he deserves it. Really, he's had plenty of time now to prove it. But yeah, we will see in a couple of days' time what happens there. Next up, we have Hull City back again to feature and Charlton to feature again in this video for the second time as they play each other this weekend. Obviously, two teams in a very, very good amount of form at the minute. Obviously, Charlton off that big 3-0 win at Ipswich. You coming off a very nice 2-1 win and a 3-2 win away at Birmingham as well. So, on paper, a game that maybe if you'd looked at about 4 or 5 weeks ago, you would have thinking, bloody hell, it's going to be boring. All of a sudden, this could be a really good game.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. It's, it's Charlton getting that win at Ipswich is a big one, and they deserve all the credit in the world for that. They're coming up against us where normally they'll probably come and try and defend and maybe try and scrape out a 1-0, but it's not going to be a game like that. We don't play like that. We don't allow teams to just we'll pile forward. We've shown that with the 19-4 and 19 against this season. That's the way that Jurkovic has got us playing. It seems like we've played like that every single game. Even when we've been leading, we've still gone forward. So it seems like that's the mentality for them. I think, if anything, if Charlton are going to go this weekend, they're going to need to remain compact. They're going to need to try and keep that low XG against them. They're going to need to try and keep solid and try and hit on the counter, which we are susceptible to. Like I say, it'd be interesting to see if McBurney's back. I mean, he was on the pitch at the end of the game, sort of running around and celebrating with the players after we'd won that Leicester game. I'd quite like to see him back, but if he's not back, then it's not the end of the world. I think I'd maybe tweak it a little bit. and put in. I'd maybe shift Joseph out a little bit and possibly bring Geldart a little bit more centrally, because I think Geldart's a little bit more creative in the middle. But obviously he's on a couple of games now where he scored back-to-back goals. He's got an assist in those games as well. And like I said already, Liam Miller, just keep your eye on him, because he's full of confidence at the moment. I just think it's got a real potential to be an exciting game, this one.
Yeah, definitely. As I said, because I think if you looked at 4 or 5 weeks ago, I think, bloody hell, this could be a horrendous one. But no, I do agree. It could be a very exciting game, this one. I just think there's so much unexpected quality in both these teams. If you looked on paper at the start of the season, I wouldn't have said any team on paper looks fantastic. But here we are. They've both been performing really well. My only worry for Hull is obviously the defensive struggles you've had and how Charlton are very good defensively. So obviously if they can counteract your goals, then they have proven they can score of their own. And with your defensive record, it could be troublesome. But at the same time, you're hard to stop scoring. I believe Coventry are the only team to have stopped you scoring this season. So it's not going to be any easy feat for Charlton's defence this week to be able to keep you out. I think it'd be a really interesting game to see where both these teams really are at. I think if whoever wins this game, if there's a winner, obviously it could be a draw, but if there is a winner, I think they have a real chance of kicking on to a really something special this year, because again, this is two teams I think we all predicted to be very low down the table, or not anywhere near the playoffs, put it that way. And one of these teams should be in the playoffs by the end of this weekend, 100%. Yeah. If not, potentially we'll both end up in the playoffs, depending on what happens elsewhere. But yeah, very exciting potential with this one. I think it could be a very nice game.
Yeah, like I say, I am looking forward to it. And obviously, depending on the result, and if we do get a win, we're going into a couple of games there where they are away. We've got a couple of away games, but it's Norwich and Derby. So there's potential for us to carry on. So if we can get a result of some sort against Charlton, I think I'd be happy with a draw, in all seriousness, given how well Charlton are playing at the moment. They're in good form. Like you say, they're hard to break down. So if we can get a result, a draw or up, I'd be happy with that. Obviously, delighted to win, but if we can get a draw, I'd take that. Given the form that these two teams are on, it wouldn't be such a disappointing thing for me to going into two away games against Norwich and Derby, and then a home game against Portsmouth. So there's a decent run of games there ahead for us. So yeah, I am looking forward to this game, I must admit.
You probably want us to lose then, so then you don't get Norwich and a new manager bounce in a week's time.
That's the thing. Yeah. So come on, Norwich.
Next up, and our final game we'll go into a bit of detail in, is Middlesbrough versus Wrexham. So obviously, again, another teams with sort of a weird runs form. Obviously, Middlesbrough flying at the top half of the table, coming off another win, albeit not the most convincing, but an away win. Sheffield Wednesday is an away win at the end of the day, and obviously beating Ipswich on Friday night last week. Then you look to Wrexham, who looks like they're sort of getting there now. Obviously, a win against Oxford, a loss against Stoke, but again forgivable, and obviously draws against Leicester and Birmingham before that. Wrexham sort of finally hitting their sort of getting out of first gear, really, and finally clicking into what a team that on paper looks brilliant is getting better and better every week. So again, Middlesbrough, you have to feel like they want to sort of kill this Wrexham form off, because they need to keep tabs with Coventry, because I can't see Coventry being losing a game anytime soon.
No, I can't either. Middlesbrough obviously coming back with back-to-back wins again after that defeat, like you say. But Wrexham, fair play. They've got the first win back at this level since the early 80s, I believe. So, fair play to them getting that win against Oxford at the weekend. So, yeah, like you said, they're starting to click a little bit more. They're starting to sort of find the feet at Championship level, which you'd expect with the money they've spent. It's a tough game this for them. I think it's a tough game for them. Middlesbrough, good side, certainly very good at home. On the back of back-to-back wins again. I think it's going to be a tough game for Wrexham here. They're going in there with a lot of pressure off, though. To be fair, because they're not going to be expected to get anything here. But I can't see past a Middlesbrough win relatively comfortable. I think Wrexham will score, because they like to stick into games. They don't really know when they're beaten. They've got a little bit of indiscipline, but with a team that's got the likes of Broadhead in there, you can never say never, and especially in the Championship, who knows? But I think I just fancy Middlesbrough to get the win this weekend.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think it's just quality, and Middlesbrough have it in abundance. As I said, the bounce back ability to come back from the loss with back-to-back wins is massive. I think it proves of a team that is here to compete this year. because some teams will start really well, have a loss, and then they'll just fall off and fall down the table. But they're not doing that. There's every time you think, oh, that might be it now, they come back and they win again. So I think that, they got massive, massive pressure on their shoulders now, sat in second in the league. I think the expectation has changed massively for them for what maybe said, maybe we get playoffs to, we probably should be getting promoted now. So it's intriguing to see with Wrexham, as you said, they've struggled, but they've had a good, decent run of results. Obviously, the loss to Stoke wasn't ideal, but, 2 good draws against 2 very good teams before that, and then a win against Oxford. It sort of seems to be finally clicking for Wrexham in one way or another. Again, surprisingly so, because as I said, I had big concerns about Phil Parkinson going into the year, and I can't say they've gone away yet. But for me, as you said, I think this should be a pretty straightforward win for Middlesbrough, which means no one Arlo with predictions is going to be like a 3-0 Wrexham win.
More than likely. Like I say, fair play to Parkinson for turning it around, because there was discussion, wasn't there, a few pods back. I think it was me and yourself.
There was,
talking about the pressure that he was under, and maybe sort of if they'd have lost that game again, I think it was Millwall, wasn't it? And they went there and got that result. So fair play to Parkinson. He's got them sort of finding their feet at Championship level, and if they can go to Middlesbrough and get a result this weekend, I think it'd be a cracking result for him.
Absolutely. So that is our games that we'll go in depth in. We'll have a quick run through of the rest of the games for this week, and we'll sort of just rattle off some quick predictions for that one. So we'll start off with tomorrow night's game, Friday night, Preston versus Sheffield United. What do we think for this one?
Tough one to call. Sheffield United turned it around a little bit now, aren't they? So they're starting to put the ball in the net, which is what we were talking about Southampton earlier. Is that a turning point for them now that they've started scoring? Can they go to Deepdale and get a result? Preston falling away a little bit. Still a good start. Still hard to break down. Sit on the fence. 1-1.
Going to agree with you. I think it's either be 0-0 or 1-1. I just can't see many goals coming out of this one. 2 teams that are notorious for not having many goals in games, and Preston hard to beat at Deepdale. On a Friday night under the lights, should be a decent crowd. I think it'd be a hard game for Sheffield United to keep their form going, but I don't think they'll lose either. So I'm going to agree with you and go with the draw. Next up, 12:30, Coventry versus Watford, and I think as much as Watford got their result on Wednesday night, I think this should be one-way traffic.
Don't see where Coventry lose again. I genuinely don't. They've got so much attacking prowess going forward. They've scored 31 goals in 11 games. They're probably going to score another 2 or 3 this weekend, and it'll be a comfortable home win.
I mean, just I'll add up my Coventry prediction. We're saying the top 3 scorers in the league all play for Coventry. And on that note, I'm going to predict a Coventry win as well. Ipswich versus West Brom. Oh, wait, we've done that one. Portsmouth versus Stoke.
We didn't give our predictions on the game, though, did we? We didn't say what we were giving. So what we're going?
Ipswich West Brom. I'm going to go with the draw, I think.
I'm going to agree.
Next up, Portsmouth versus Stoke City.
Another tough one to call. Stoke keep pulling these results out when they're not expected to win. I'm not sure Fratton Park is the place it was last season. Portsmouth will obviously want to make it that way. It wouldn't surprise me if Stoke go down there and get a win.
Yeah, Pompey are finally sort of proven to be the hard team to beat as we knew them as last season at times. At Fratton Park, they need to sort of improve that home form. But I think Stoke's quality, they need to win to keep in touch with the sort of playoff and promotion race. So I wouldn't be surprised as well if they come into Fratton Park and they get a big win. Blackburn versus Southampton at Ewood Park is next.
Wow. I mean, Southampton should be winning this game. Can they turn that XG into goals? And they need to start doing it, and pretty quickly. Blackburn are awful at the moment. So it should be a Southampton win. I'm going to say Southampton will win, but who the hell knows? With the way that Southampton are not putting the ball in the net, and Blackburn need to turn it around somehow. But Southampton 2-0.
Yeah, if Southampton score half the chances that they've been getting the last couple of games, this could be an absolute onslaught against Blackburn because of how poor they've been. Blackburn are so bad, they even lost to us, so that says it all, really. I'm going to go Southampton. I reckon it's either going to be like a tight win or they're going to batter them. I don't think it'll be like a 2-0. I think it'll be like 1-0 or 4-0. Maybe somewhere in them sort of ranges. Next up, Bristol City versus Birmingham. Probably unlucky to miss out on our sort of in-depth sort of thing there, because it's quite a good game, this. But what are we thinking?
Another tight game to call. It's a tough one. Obviously, Bristol City are in the top 4 on merit. They've got a decent home form. They're scoring goals at home. Birmingham obviously got that nice confidence boosting win against Preston in midweek after losing to us. Thought I'd get that in Elliot. And yeah, tough one to call. Bristol City like to attack at home, so could be quite an open game. I'm going to go with a high-scoring score draw. I'm going to go 2-2.
I'm going to go Bristol City, I think. I think with the form they're in compared to Birmingham struggling at the minute, I think they're going to continue that form, Bristol City, and they're going to keep pushing on towards the automatic promotion places. And I think Birmingham, yet again, there's going to be more questions as to another manager potentially in trouble as Chris Davis. And I think if they lost to this game, I think then questions start ringing louder and louder with an ownership group, which I can't imagine will be all too patient with the money that they've put behind this team. Next up, Derby versus QPR. For me personally, I think this is. I think 0-0 screaming to me here.
See, it does, but QPR are just playing well at the moment, and they just right. Okay, QPR will win. QPR will win this game. 2-1 to QPR. I've got a feeling that QPR will go to Pride Park this weekend and come away with a win.
I think I'm going to sit with 0-0. That QPR was so unconvincing, only scoring 1 goal against a 10-man Swansea side who have been rubbish at the minute. Not convinced at all with QPR, so I'm going to go with the 0-0. I just think two all right teams, and I think they'll cancel each other out in a tough game. Next up, we have, I'm trying to remember what games we went through at the start. There we go. Millwall versus Leicester.
Another tough game to call. Leicester should win. Millwall playing relatively well. Obviously sat there in 3rd in the league, so they're another team who got back-to-back wins. But looking at the teams on paper, Leicester should be winning this game. But who knows, man? It's Millwall playing well. They've got all the confidence in the world. Leicester just can't win at the moment. It's just draws, and then a loss. They've got 1 win sandwiched in there somewhere, I think. And the Den's notorious. I didn't want to say. It's notorious for it being tough to go to. And Millwall are obviously top 6 on merit. They're there again. Leicester to win 1-0.
I think Millwall getting nosebleeds being this high up the table. I think I wouldn't be surprised Leicester come in here and get a win. They need it really badly, but at the same time with their form as well. Okay, I don't want to predict draws again because we know what happened the last time I did an episode full of draws. I think any of the games ended in a draw, but I could really see this being like a 1-1, just 2 teams where Millwall hard to beat and Leicester struggling to score. I just think I can't see it being an exciting game by any means. Next up, Sheffield Wednesday versus Oxford United, which I believe is our last game as well, because obviously the only one left is Swansea Norwich here. Sheffield Wednesday versus Oxford as our last game of the episode.
I saw that obviously Sheffield Wednesday they boycotted the game in midweek against Middlesbrough, didn't they? I think they looked like there was more Middlesbrough fans there. Obviously,
there was confirmed.
Was there more?
There's 7,000 attendance, and I believe Boro had quite a hefty away attendance. So I believe they had more fans.
That's incredible, and fair play for the fans for staying away. They really need to sort of drum that message home about the abhorrent ownership that they've got there, and it really needs sorting out. It shouldn't happen. So credit to the Sheffield Wednesday fans for staying away there. And I fancy him to get a win. I actually fancy them to win this weekend. So I'm gonna predict a 2-0 Sheffield Wednesday win against Oxford.
I'm glad you said it because I'm also going to join you. Now I don't know if it'll be 2-0, but I'm going to go Sheffield Wednesday win as well. I think they were quite good against Middlesbrough, all things considered. And the team isn't as bad as been made out to be. Obviously, they've had to get, I believe, Joe Lumley's in on a week loan because of Ethan Horvath's suspension. Don't know if he'll play this weekend because I think has Horvath served it now after last night? I'm not sure. But
I'm not sure.
Either way.
I just think the desire and the determination that they've got to keep putting in these performances week on week, and they've not been drubbed, have they? To keep going and plugging away with what's going on behind the scenes is massive credit to the Sheffield Wednesday players and for the fans for doing what they're doing. So fair play to them.
Absolutely, as you said, fair play to the fans. Because as much as it's difficult to give it up, it's a very powerful message seeing that stand so empty, especially
Massive.
the Sandwich and series name on it, which I think is a whole other problem in itself. Sort of sums up really. But yeah, fair play to the fans for staying away in such difficult circumstances, and we hope that finally gets sorted soon here on the podcast. But that is all we have for you this week. So as I said, we should be back next week for our review of this weekend's fixtures. But thank you very much to Ollie for joining me as always, and we will see you all next week.
See you next week.